We found out on his debut appearance on the show, Ryan Pinder has Saskatchewan roots from Barnburner in Calgary. Oh, yeah. So what was the genealogy again of Sasky? It's the aunts, it's the uncles. How did that all break down?
Well, okay, so my grandfather grew up in Saskatoon. My
Yes.
dad grew up in Saskatoon, one of 4 Pinder boys. Jerry
Yep.
played for the Blades. Herb played for the Blades. My dad, Tom, played for the Blades. And Dick, my other uncle, the other son, ran Pinder's Drugs for a while. And I think at some point, one of them owned the Regina Pats way back when. My grandfather's dad was the mayor of Saskatoon. We got some blood here. Sasky blood.
All right. So Pinder, let's just say Pinder is Saskatchewan connected. Don't make a wrong move. The best part about your show, if you are a non-Edmonton Oiler fan, is you and your co-host Boomer and Sasky legend Weapon Rhett Warner. Is an understatement to say that you're not fans of the Edmonton Oilers and everything that's going on in oil country these days?
You know, it's just sport's amazing because rivalry's great, and it's really the only place in society where we can be totally irrational and hate something, maybe just because of the color or the shape of the logo. And, you know, growing up in Calgary, from my Saskatoon-raised father and Toronto-raised mother, every sporting event you go to, the marquee rivalry was Calgary against some team from Edmonton. And so, you know, you're born into this. And that's a good starting point for a great rivalry for any two franchises. My young years was the peak of the Calgary-Edmonton rivalry of the 80s, where you saw the Oilers or Flames make it to the Stanley Cup final, I believe, for like a decade straight coming out of the Campbell Conference. And those were bloodbaths and wars. And so it's very not hard for any Calgarian to, you know, feel a little ill will towards the Oilers, although that's probably faded over the last 20 years. But this particular Oiler team was built on futility. The owner of said team had the lowest winning percentage of any owner of the Pro 4 sports in North America at the time of winning his 4th draft lottery in 7 years. And they've continued to fumble and bumble and step into bear traps through the 10 years now with Connor McDavid. And they do have a good team. They should have a dynasty. And if this was Bill Zito gifted Draisaitl and McDavid a decade ago, it'd be hard to argue you wouldn't. But when you have to buy out players and you make horrible free agent signings and you trade guys like Jordan Eberle multiple times over until it's a paperclip, it's all you have left, and you don't really have much in your draft track record for success, it's really what you don't want to see in the world. It's people failing into success. And I'll give Ken Holland credit. He turned it around a little bit, but you still gave Darnell Nurse number 1 defenseman money when he's clearly a 4-5. You still, you know, gave Jack Campbell $25 million only to bury him in the minors a year later. Like, it's just been frustrating to watch a management team make so many mistakes. Oh, the Red Wine Club, the alumni, you know, these old guys are going to fix it. I mean, over and over and over. Oh, Wayne Gretzky's brother's a finalist for the GM. It has nothing to do with his last name. Like, all this nonsense we've watched for 15 years. And finally, you know, these 2 superstars who are great might win a cup, but it has almost nothing to do with a long list of good decisions being made. How's that for an argument?
Well, part A, I think that we may have found a trigger. Just throwing that out there.
That's correct. And I do talk to my psychologist about this. Sorry, Dave. Yeah, I didn't mention that.
Part B is that I may be wrong, but have we found Calgary's biggest Matthew Tkachuk fan?
Oh, and Sam Bennett too. And all of a sudden, Brad Marchand is climbing the power rankings out here. Yeah, no, it's ABE, anyone but Edmonton. That's sort of the motto. And look, that fan base deserves it. They've suffered through a lot of really, really bad teams. I'd say a stronger word, but I don't know what the rules are in your station. You've seen our podcast. The fans deserve this. The owner and the management team does not, to be frank.
So the other night, when it ends up 6-1, not what I was expecting after the first couple of games. It seemed like they got a dose of Florida heavy all over the place, and they didn't let up. And I saw people over the past 24 hours, oh, the Oilers, they stuck up for themselves. They were trying to fight their way out of the building. Yeah, well, they had the McDavid and Draisaitl stapled to the bench, but Florida was still playing their guys. Florida's not going to change in game 4, 5, 6, or 7. Can the Oilers stand up to the physical abuse that they've been taking since about what, the second period of game 2?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I think the Oilers have been very good at setting the tone physically in all the series they've played until now, and they're probably up against the most physical team in the league. And the hits were very close in game 1, but game 3 they were not good, and Florida was. I don't think that means that this thing's over. They're in trouble as much as some people would like that to be the case. Unprofessional non-journalists would want that to be the case. No, I think how they react tomorrow night is going to be a huge story. It's a really long series if they win game 4, and maybe they're the favorites all of a sudden. And if Florida wins, it's like, all right, that's a decade where it's a dynasty that's turned into 0 banners. Because I don't think you're going to win 3 in a row against this team. You did last year, but God, that feels like asking for 2 Hail Marys in a row. And you didn't win the series last year. As for the silly stuff, like the game's over at 4-1, so why not send messages? I think Florida would be doing it. And if they didn't up the ante physically, you'd say, like, do these guys not care? Like, go out in there and hurt someone. So I don't know. They kind of can't win there, but no one got suspended. Florida won't want to be down in a game, but if they are, I think they know what they'll be doing.
I'd answer this question myself, but thankfully I was sitting on a couch earlier today, and I don't want to go down that road again, but I'll throw it to you.
Yeah.
If you had your way looking at this Oiler roster, let's say we transplant everybody to the Calgary Flames, one across,
Yeah.
It's all done. They're now all Calgary Flames. What are you going to do to make this team a Stanley Cup contender? What has to be done?
Well, I mean,
for the Edmonton Oilers?
If you're ranking goaltenders in the league from 1 to 64, theoretically, Stuart Skinner does not belong anywhere near the top 10, and maybe even not the top 20, depending on who you talk to. They have not addressed goaltending for 3 years since they mistakenly addressed it with Jack Campbell, who was not a solution, and many people saw that coming. A guy that would barely been a 1A over the course of a decade in the league. So every year they get to the trade deadline, it's like, you know what we need? Another forward. It's like, well, I don't know that you needed Adam Henrique for a first. He's a nice player. And it's like, well, we don't want Broberg and we don't need Holloway. And it's like, well, if you had Broberg and Holloway, maybe you wouldn't have to spend a first on Jake Wallman. And in this theoretical, fancy land we're making up in our minds where you still have those 2 players better than the ones you spent on July 1st or watching in the press box right now, you could use that first rounder on a netminder instead. And I think Stuart Skinner can be a very good goalie, but he's incredibly streaky and hot and cold. And Calvin Pickard's a guy that clears waivers in this league pretty regularly. Like, he's had a nice year, but if you're asking one of those guys to be at Sergei Bobrovsky's level, isn't that a little bit of insanity after watching it not work last spring?
Last time we had you on, the Flames were right in that murky middle of either they're going to make the playoffs by a point, they're going to miss it by a point, and they're going to shoot them. They don't have any toes left to shoot off for the past after the tree living era, but it happened again. So I texted you, hey, will you come on and tell us how the Calgary Flames drafting 18th can build a dynasty in YYC? Here you are, another draft pick somewhere. Maybe you're going to get a Wyatt Johnston. I don't know. Pinder, nothing changes, man. It was either blow it up. No, we're not. It's not a rebuild. We're doing a retool and all that. But there they are. Murky middle draft in 16 days in Riot, LA.
Yeah, look, it's a tough place to hit home runs in the draft. You can do it. No one does it with great regularity. Dallas would be the closest. I know Thomas Harley was drafted in that range. You mentioned Wyatt Johnston. There are very good players that get drafted in the teens. There's also guys that never play, and there's guys that are career European, AHL, or even just fourth line guys, and that's fine. I guess if you look at the number of players in the league and the number of draft picks every year, you shouldn't be waiting for the 16th pick to go find a superstar if you know how they're going to turn out. They should all be gone by then. But they also have Florida's first rounder, and I wonder how high they could move up if they package 18 and 31 and or 32, depending on where the Panthers finish. Maybe that gets you up to 10, 11. That certainly increases your odds of hitting. Still isn't a guarantee. But the real big picture truth is that they don't have stars. They have a goaltender who probably can be one, and they've got Zane Parekh coming up on the right side of the blue line who looks like he could be a very, very dynamic offensive player. But your top 2 centers are going to be 36 and 35 in Michael Backlund and Nazem Kadri. You can't win in this league if you don't have young, dynamic centers or at least stars at center. And those guys are 2 threes on a championship team. Nazem Kadri's not taking Sasha Barkov nor Connor McDavid's job. Like he's a 2, and they're playing him as a 1. The way you get those players is you draft them very high, or something catastrophic happens to someone's career, like Sam Bennett not looking like a good NHLer for 5 years, or Jack Eichel needing neck surgery. You don't go get top players and stars in this league and trade. Players are loath to trade them. You can give guys too much money in free agency, but if you actually want to build a team that can win long term and be a contender sustainably, you need to hit at the top of the draft. Colorado did it with McKinnon and Makar and Rantanen in the top 10. And Landeskog was not a low pick, right? You look at Florida, Sasha Barkov. You got Aaron Ekblad. They've done a really good job of grubbing other teams' high picks. Sam Reinhart out of Buffalo. Obviously, Tkachuk and Bennett out of Calgary. Edmonton is built entirely. This team's not successful if it doesn't have Leon Draisaitl at 3 and Connor McDavid at 1. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins at 1 is a middling piece, but that helps. You have to pick at the top of the draft to win cups, almost without exception. I think about like Vegas. Okay, that's not a team that is built on the draft. And St. Louis, an incredible hot goaltending run for the ages. But generally speaking, otherwise, whether it's Kane and Taves in Chicago, or Malkin and Letang and Crosby and Fleury in Pittsburgh, all these teams that are sustainable contenders are built on stars at the top of the draft. So the Calgary Flames have to start picking there.
I love it. I love it. And I thought I heard that you said that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins RNH going to be traded straight across for Dan Vladar. Is that what the deal is?
Yeah, no, I don't see. I think Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is going to probably be an Oiler for life. Unlike every other Oiler, Dave, he might finish his career in that jersey. I will pose you the challenge. Best one jersey Oiler. You can't name one.
All right, so Ryan, something you may not know about Dave. He's a passionate Blue Jay fan like you are. We'll get into the Jays in a second. But at the start of the season, the viral sensation of the 999 challenge came up, and we talked about it on the show. And everybody on that day was like, we could never do it. 9 innings of baseball, you eat 9 hot dogs, and you drink 9 beer. And I think I said I could maybe do 4 innings, but then I'm going to be out for about 36 hours. I'm not going to be able to function. That'd be so. But a few weeks ago, you completed the 999 challenge. Tell us this story.
Yeah, so Boomer, our host of the program, alongside Rhett and myself, loves to goad us into doing really dumb that could be stuff if you want. And so he casually brought up the 999 as we'd seen it, like making appearances on people's socials, and it's like, oh, would you be into that? You think you could do it? I'm like, I mean, I wouldn't enjoy it, but I bet you, like, you imagine your life's on the line, you can accomplish a lot of things. Yeah, I think I could do that. So we got to find a date for this. It's like, wow, I mean, we're all going to do it, sure. And, we'll invite some pals and we'll attach a charity to it. And sure enough, the other cowards backed off, and it was producer Jack and I that did it amongst about 22 other competitors at Greta here in Calgary a couple of weeks ago. And it was simple. You basically have a dog and a beer in front of you at first pitch. And by the end of the game, you got to be done 9 of each. The beers were not a problem. The hot dogs were a massive issue. Producer Jack tapped up at 5. Former Nevada and Stampeders lineman John Bender got to 7, and he couldn't go. He's got to be close to 350. He's 6'8". But, I pushed myself to horrible, dark places in my mind to complete it. And with 2 outs in the middle of the 8th inning, we had 9 dogs done and 9 beers in before the 9 innings. It was a 10-9-9, Dave. I did get an extra beer in.
I'm giving you a high, mighty applause because I'll tell you, on the best of nights, the Toronto Blue Jays sometimes can just make you want to drink more than 9. I don't know how they're doing it. I've tried to find answers. Somehow, Alejandro Kirk is a superhero all of a sudden. Who cares if you only have a 3-man starting rotation? Like, how is this happening right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, look, I think a lot of things, anything that could go wrong has for this group. And, for some reason, people just hate hearing that they're finishing second for Ohtani and Soto. And you're like, teams should be excited that their ownership is trying to get stars. And yet here, everyone just has it out for this management group so much that they're like, these losers, lock up Vladdy before you do this. And like, I understand the sentiment, but they got Vladdy done. Even after his self-imposed deadline, they got it done. You're like, okay, well, that's good. And you start to look at some of their sales they made at the deadline last year when they weren't a team in the playoffs. Like, geez, there's some decent players they got back here. And you look at Ernie Clement, there's a nice reclamation project. And you look at some of the kids they've drafted that are coming up, and you're like, all right. Like Trey Savage is having a monster year coming up. You look at Arjun Nimmo, he's having a monster year down at Vancouver Single A. The real letdown this management team's had over the last decade is they haven't drafted well. And so if they could correct that, they've been able to get guys in free agency like Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett. These are really good signings. Have they made mistakes? Yeah, of course. But I think people hate the press conferences and the language and the tone and tenor more than the actual. If you break down what they gave away and what they got back, they've done pretty well. Like, adding a starter like Jose Barrios, like that was a great move. That's great. You lock him up as you start? No. As you starting pitcher every 5 days, you're damn right he is. He's going to make 30 starts and he's a 2-3 everywhere. That's great. But really, it's been these role players coming up that have been great. Addison Barger's just ripping the ball, and he can play in a lot of places on the diamond. Clement's been good. Kirk's offense is back. He's already one of the better defensive catchers around with pitch framing and such. It's a lot of things that are coming together. And if you look back, they've had a lot of things that have gone the opposite way the last 2 years. Like Bo Bichette was a shadow of himself last year. He looks like Bo Bichette this year. That's great. Yep. Vladdy 2 years ago was tough. Last year, he was great. Like they're finally getting some things to come together. And to Dave's point, you can now say, okay, if they do get a healthy Max Scherzer and they can either figure out Bowden Francis or have an Alek Manoah at the end of the summer or address it at the trade deadline, like the bullpen's been tidy. The lineup's been better than you thought. They're very positionally and handedly flexible. I've been impressed, but yeah, it's been a surprise for sure.
I would love to know, Pinder, if the Jays were to get to the World Series, forget the hot dogs, how many beer could you drink in a game? Let's say it's a deciding game. You're sitting there, someone else is buying.
No.
Like, what are we talking? What are we talking?
You want to remember those games, though. That's the thing. Like you could do something stupid, but you want to enjoy the game, but you want to remember. Like I remember exactly what pub I was at when the bat got flipped, and 45 minutes before that when they were arguing about Russell Martin throwing it back to the mound to hit a bat, and then fans are throwing trash in the field. I remember what bar I was at there, but it was only a 2-bar night, and I do remember that night. That's what you need to be. You don't need to be obliterated. You need to be in the pocket of being able to enjoy it, but keep the memory as well, right?
A guy that I remember is Alec. Are you ever going to see him again, do you think? I know he's coming off Tommy John. Do you think can he do anything for us?
So did you say Manoah? You just cut out for a split second.
Manoah?
Yeah.
Manoah.
He's throwing. He'll have, I think he's doing a live BP, and then it's probably rehab starts, and the results will tell you. I think he's way too young to quit on. Like, it's an interesting surgery choice. They didn't go with the full Tommy. They went with some sort of brace, but they know more than we do on the sports science stuff. And frankly, as a rookie, he was, unbelievable. Like he was phenomenal. If you're asking a guy to be a 5 starter, I don't feel like that's a high ceiling. I don't think it's crazy that he could help you out, but you're going to need to see at the lower levels first. But he's young. He looks like the body's in a lot better shape than it was a couple of years ago. And you always loved that bulldog mentality he had. So you hope he can be healthy and be a contributing part. I don't think it's outlandish.
Ryan Pinder joining us on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. So the show, the live stream happens every day on YouTube, correct? Around 10-ish in the morning. Is that sort of the time?
We aim for 10, and given that we're all unorganized, bumbling fools, it's usually a 10:10 start Mountain Time on YouTube. We are on the Flames Nation Network, and the show typically runs for a couple hours until around noonish. Wednesday, Jamie McLennan, Rhett's old former teammate, Noodles, who does great work for TSN and does the Senators color broadcast, joins us Wednesday for half an hour. Darren Dreger every Friday for half an hour. And then it's the usual blend of tomfoolery with, food, how to make gravy, jabs at Oilers fans, and, just the nonsense you've come to expect if you know anything about our brand. Is we've worked together for about 12 years now, including 10 years on an unnamed sports radio station here in Calgary.
Okay. If you're going to go back and go down a rabbit hole, there's an episode last week. Just zip in and go to the segment where you guys talk about being asked, well, are you going to cheer for the Oilers because they're Canadian? There's some great responses, not fit for public radio, only on the internet, but that will be part of Barnburner. Pinder, as
check
always.
Out our social streams. The Flames Nation streams on Twitter, X, same thing. I guess Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, a lot of stuff. The show is very digestible in 30 to 60 second sound bites to get a vibe for what it's all about. Thanks, guys.